I got into Duke despite not being the best student academically because I was able to tell my story and showcase who I was to admissions officers reading my application. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that while giving you all the details you need to get into a top 10 university. But wait, do you even need to go to college at all? I'm going to be breaking all this down for you, so regardless of if you're an A student who's been preparing for this moment for all of high school, or if you're deciding if you even want to go to college, you'll get something out of this. What do college admissions officers look for in an applicant? They're mainly going to be looking at 4 things: grades and test scores, letters of recommendation, extracurriculars, and a compelling life story. Your grades and test scores are pretty self-explanatory. A student with a 4.0 is going to be more compelling to a college than a student with a 3.0, but there is a little bit of nuance here. The types of classes you're taking are important. If you want to study engineering in college, then it may be alright to have lower grades in your history and English classes if you're excelling in math and physics. AP and IB classes are also great, so take as many of those as you can. Admissions officers want to see that you're ambitious and can handle a large workload, and a 1550 on the SAT or 35 on the ACT will never hurt your chances. So study hard for these tests since they're a great way to boost your application. But it's okay if tests and grades aren't your strong suit. Remember, this is only 1 out of 4 things that they're looking for. Letters of recommendation. Not every college will accept letters of recommendation, but if they do, I'd highly recommend asking your teachers to write you one. I was really lucky since I went to a school which ran from 5th to 12th grade, so some of my teachers have known me for 7 years, and I think my letters were a huge reason of how I got into Duke. Make sure you ask someone who you trust and who knows you well. Extracurriculars. In my opinion, extracurriculars are the most underappreciated and misunderstood part of the college admissions process. When I was a senior applying to college, I still remember during our college counseling class when we were asked to write down everything we did outside of school. And at the time, I felt insecure. I mean, some of my friends were presidents of organizations and founders of new clubs, and they were interning at genetic research facilities. Meanwhile, I spent most of my free time playing video games. But I soon realized it's not the amount of things you're doing or the prestige that are important. It's your attachment to it and the level of passion you have for it. Remember, you're trying to show a college why you're the perfect fit for them, not overwhelm them with your accolades. The most important thing about your extracurriculars is the story you tell with them, which leads me to what is, in my opinion, the single most important part of your college application, and the thing you can do right now, regardless of what you've done in the past and what your test grades are, that can improve your chances of getting into your dream school. And that's your personal story. But how do you tell it? And how do you craft it in a way that a college admissions officer will read it and understand why they need to reserve a spot for you? The essays that you write as a part of your application are a great place to start. The Common App essay is pretty broad and gives you lots of room to work with. And even the specific essays you write for each college you apply to will give you plenty of chances to share your story. Now, don't fall into the trap of sharing your entire life story, starting from early childhood and making your way to high school. If you can do it super briefly, cool. But I'd recommend focusing in on a particular story that explains who you are succinctly. You can also tell your story throughout your application. Your resume tells a story, down to every bullet point. Your grades even tell a story, but you don't have any control over them by the time it comes to application season. So remember to tell a compelling story throughout your application and you'll stand out. The essays are where I think most people crumble when it comes to the application process. It's easy to overlook them, but they are an integral part of what admissions departments look at, and it's your best chance to showcase who you are in your own voice. But how do you write about who you are if you don't know what you want? Chapter 2, the value of education. If you're applying to college right now or are planning to apply in the future, I want you to think about this question. Why do you want to go to college? Seems pretty simple, right? You might say, well, I want to be a mathematician and create new theorems, or maybe you want to be a dentist. But why do you want to do these things? If you don't have solid answers to these questions, then you're going to struggle with writing a compelling essay. And even more importantly, you may not even be making the right decision for yourself. At the end of this video, I'm going to talk more about the value of college in a rapidly changing digital world. But I truly think that there are so many opportunities available to you in order to create a future you want to create for yourself. And they don't all have to involve going to college. It's a social rite of passage, and it can mean a great deal, especially if you're the first in your family to go, but it's also expensive if you don't have scholarships, and you need to be thinking about it as a purchase, not a necessity. So really think about it. What are you buying? I was supported by financial aid when I went to Duke, which was a big factor in me deciding to go, but it also has a lot of great things going for it. It's a top 10 school with a vibrant campus, a competitive and passionate student culture, and will prepare you for literally anything you want to do in the world. I'll give more advice on what Duke looks for specifically in an applicant a little later, but up front, I want to say that not every school is Duke, and you should think long and hard about the value of the education you're choosing and how that education will empower your goals. Having a college degree is valuable. I won't deny that, but we live in a world where there is so much access to information that I truly believe you can develop any skill you want to through online practice and resources. College definitely helps. It creates a structured environment where it's easy to learn, and it's also a ton of fun, but I see so many people who are just as lost and confused in their life after graduating as before they started. And I think if you're the type of person to thrive in college because you take advantage of every opportunity, then you'll do fine without it as well. Chapter 3, how to get into a top 10 school. So if you're like how I was in high school, then you had your dreams set on the very top, the Ivy Leagues and the top 10 schools in the country. For me, my dream schools for a long time were MIT and Caltech, since I wanted to be an engineer. But how do you get into these schools, especially when it's more competitive now than it's ever been? What do the best universities in the countries look for in an applicant? One piece of advice I got that helped me was that these universities are looking for broad competence and specific excellence. So what does that mean? Broad competence means you have what it takes academically to thrive at these schools. They're not going to admit someone who's weak in math and science if they're trying to become a doctor, because they want to know you're not just going to fail your classes and drop out. They want you to graduate so that you can go on to become successful, so that you'll donate money and send your kids there. Private schools are businesses at the end of the day, so you need to show them that you're competent. The best way to do this is with strong grades, but involvement in different clubs and organizations can also help create a well-rounded application. But you don't just need to be well-rounded. These schools reject thousands of people every year that are well-rounded. You also need to be the best at something. So what single thing do you exceed at? Not just being above average, but the best. That's what these schools are looking for. National speech and debate champions, math Olympiads, people who've already started a successful business in high school, a nationally ranked tennis champion. That's the type of people that these schools are looking for. If this doesn't sound like you, that's okay. I didn't think it sounded like me either, which is why I was shocked when I found out that I got in. But looking back, there were a couple things I exceeded in that I showcased that allowed me to have a strong application. For one, I qualified and competed with my team for the VEX Robotics World Championship twice. And then I won third place in my category at the Arizona Science and Engineering Fair 2 years in a row. I also founded a club in my school to share my passion for designing and building RC planes. Now at the time, I didn't think any of these were really exceptional. After all, we never won that robotics competition. I was third place, not first, and the club I started was pretty tiny. But together, they helped tell a story. I've always loved airplanes. Ever since I was little, I was obsessed with the SR-71 Blackbird, and I spent a lot of my free time in high school designing my own RC planes and trying to get them to fly. I learned all this myself through YouTube, and then put the skills into practice to create a vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, and then the next year, a solar-powered aircraft that was funded through the Arizona State University Solar Power Lab. So individually, they may not have been a lot, but together, these accomplishments helped me tell a story about how my passion for flight led me to build physical creations, and I told that story through my Common App essay. What you exceed at may not be obvious to you. It may even be something you're insecure about, but the more personal it is to you, the better. Chapter 4, how to get into Duke. So at this point, I've given you advice on how to generally get into a selective college, but what about Duke specifically? What does Duke look for? First, it helps to do your research. If you have any friends or family members who've gone to Duke, start by asking them questions, but I'd imagine most of you don't have anyone you can ask. Thankfully, Duke has a really strong online presence with social media accounts and websites that you can peruse to learn more about the campus and the educational opportunities. I definitely highlight the top things that you're interested in your Why Duke essay. One thing to know generally is that Duke loves to see people who go out of their way to take advantage of opportunities. There are tons of resources available at Duke, and they want students that are going to take full advantage of that. So demonstrate that you're not only the type of person to seize every opportunity, but that you create your own as well. You want to showcase that you're an innovative thinker with a unique approach to the world. Diversity of thought and culture is very important to Duke, and they want people who are going to graduate and go off to found companies, lead governments, and create change. So you want to showcase that you want to have an impact on the world. Sports is also a huge part of the culture at Duke. but I would actually hesitate to talk about it too much, since that's what a lot of people are going to do. Remember, you're trying to stand out, not get lost in the sea of applications. So think about what your unfair advantage is and explain it succinctly. By now, I hope you've gotten some practical advice out of this, but if you have any specific questions, please leave me a comment and I'll answer it to the best I can. I do want to take this moment though to reflect on the value of college. I truly think that most people don't spend enough time thinking about what it is they truly want and simply go along the path of least resistance that has already been assigned to them. If your parents went to college, it can feel like you need to. And if your parents didn't go to college, it's seen as the gateway to opportunity that you cannot skip. But I truly think that in our modern world, many colleges and universities simply don't provide as much value as they used to. Top 10 schools aside, I actually think the top 10 schools provide more value than they ever have, and they also have really generous financial aid packages, which is why I think it's worth a shot to apply, especially since you can get a waiver to apply for free if you qualify. But the world is changing. I think we live in a much more skill-based environment now. In the past, having a college diploma by itself was a valuable asset, but I truly think that if you have the skills to do a job and you can demonstrate it, that's the most important thing. So if the cost of education is daunting to you, or you feel like college might not be the right fit, I don't want you to be discouraged. It may feel like you're missing out on something that everyone else goes through, but don't ever feel like you're falling behind or that you're a failure because you're not taking a traditional path or you're not doing exactly what's expected of you from your parents. If you do want to go to a top 10 school though, and you take the advice from this video to improve your application, I wish you the best of luck. And I also have something to tell you, which is something someone told me right after I submitted my application. To some level, it's chance whether or not you get in. I say that not to discourage you, since I believe we're all capable of creating our own luck, but these schools turn away thousands of incredibly well-qualified, talented students every year. If you're waiting to hear back from a school, this also applies. So don't stress out too much about it. So that's it for today, guys. I sincerely hope you got something out of this. And if you have thoughts, please share them in the comments below. Here's to a great 2024. If you enjoyed this, check out my other video on purpose, since you'll probably like that too. Peace.